Power has always been unevenly distributed. Some men rise above others, commanding armies, shaping nations, bending fate to their will. But why? What separates the ruler from the ruled, the predator from the prey? Niccolò Machiavelli believed that greatness was not born from chance, nor from morality, nor from luck. It came from one hidden trait, a trait that gave a man an unfair advantage over all others, a quality so rare that those who possess it dominate, while those who lack it forever kneel. This trait is not intelligence alone, nor brute strength, nor wealth, nor charm. It is something deeper, something that allows a man to bend circumstances to his favor, to thrive where others fail, to turn chaos into order. Machiavelli called it Virtù, not virtue as we know it today, but the ruthless, adaptable force of will that makes a man unbreakable. In this video, we will uncover why Virtù is the single trait that grants an unfair advantage, how the greatest rulers used it, and how you can apply it to your own life. 1. Virtù, the force that conquers fortune. Machiavelli believed that life itself is a struggle between two powers, virtù and fortune. Fortune, he wrote, is like a wild and violent river. At times, it flows gently, nourishing the land, making life seem easy and safe. But sooner or later, the rains come. The river swells, the banks collapse, and the flood washes away everything in its path. Most men live like villagers along the shore, content and unprepared, always praying that disaster will not strike. And when the waters finally rise, they curse fate, they curse the gods, they curse bad luck. They do not see that their weakness is not in fate, but in themselves. The man of virtù is different. He knows the flood will come. He knows the world is chaotic, unpredictable, and ruthless. And because he knows this, he builds dams. He digs channels. He strengthens his house so that when the waters rise, they do not sweep him away. Virtù is not a belief in luck. It is the rejection of luck. It is the refusal to surrender to the randomness of life. It is the recognition that while we cannot control the storm, we can control how we prepare for it, how we respond to it, and how we exploit it. Virtù is the courage to act when others freeze. It is the discipline to prepare when others delay. It is the cunning to exploit opportunity when others hesitate. It is what allows a man to stand calmly on the battlefield while his soldiers look to him for strength. It is what allows a leader to transform danger into triumph. A man with virtù does not wait for the world to hand him gifts. He takes them. He does not pray for luck. He bends chance into strategy. Where others see disaster, he sees an opening. Where others surrender to defeat, he sees the seed of victory waiting to be cultivated. This is why virtù is the greatest unfair advantage. It makes a man undefeatable, not because he never falls, but because every fall strengthens him, every setback sharpens him, and every loss becomes fuel for greater victories. 2. Adaptability, the shapeless weapon. Machiavelli understood that the man of virtù is not bound by form. He is shapeless, like water, taking the shape of whatever container the moment requires. He does not cling to one identity, one rigid strategy, or one fixed way of seeing the world. He is adaptable, fluid, endlessly transforming as the demands of circumstance shift around him. When peace is needed, he becomes gentle, a man of patience and civility. When war arrives, he hardens into iron, unbending and ruthless. When success comes through flattery, he wears a pleasant mask and speaks sweetly. When survival demands terror, he becomes a storm that no one dares resist. His power lies not in being one thing,
but in being everything when necessary, and nothing when it serves him best.
Most men fail because they are rigid. They cling to their routines, their comfort zones, their ideas of how the world should be, rather than how it is. They worship consistency, even when consistency destroys them. They want to be known as good, or honest, or loyal, even when such labels bind them in chains. And so, when the world shifts, when peace turns to chaos, when loyalty becomes a liability, when honesty brings destruction, they break because they cannot change with the times. They're like trees with roots too deep, strong in still weather, but the first to shatter in the storm. But the adaptable man, the man of Virtu, flows like water. He reshapes himself without losing his essence. He can enter every crack, every crevice, every opportunity, molding himself to fit the demands of the moment. And in doing so, he becomes unpredictable, uncatchable, impossible to fully control. His enemies cannot pin him down, because the moment they believe they know his nature, he reveals another face, another strategy, another strength. This adaptability is an unfair advantage, because the rigid man is a prisoner of his own predictability, while the adaptable man is free. He can be kind without being weak, cruel without being savage, humble without being servile, arrogant without being foolish. He can move between masks without ever losing the self beneath them. To live with Virtu is to discard rigidity, to stop clinging to a fixed identity, and to embrace the truth that life is not one unchanging game, but a battlefield that shifts every moment. And on that battlefield, it is not the strongest who endure, but the most adaptable. The man who adapts rules. The man who resists is crushed. 3. Decisiveness. The power to act without hesitation. Machiavelli despised hesitation, for he recognized it as the silent poison that corrodes leaders and cripples men of ambition. He understood that life rarely presents itself in perfect clarity. The truth is always clouded, the future always uncertain, and opportunities arrive not with clear instruction, but as fleeting shadows. To hesitate in those moments is to lose. To deliberate endlessly is to watch the prize slip into the hands of the bolder man. This is why Virtu is inseparable from decisiveness, the ability to act swiftly, even in fog and doubt, trusting in one's own will to bend events to one's favor. The decisive man does not need certainty, for he knows certainty does not exist. What he needs is the courage to strike. The weak, on the other hand, live in the prison of hesitation. They wait endlessly, hoping for perfect timing, flawless plans, absolute guarantees of success. But Machiavelli knew that perfection is an illusion, a mirage that vanishes the closer one approaches. Fortune does not wait for the cautious. She rewards the bold, the one who moves first, who takes the risk, who strikes while others are still lost in debate. Every great empire, every bold conquest, every lasting dynasty was born not from hesitation, but from the will of someone who dared to act when others were paralyzed by fear.
Decisiveness is an unfair advantage because most people are enslaved by overthinking. They drown in possibilities, lost in endless calculations of what might happen, while the decisive man has already acted, already moved, already reshaped the battlefield in his favor. By the time the hesitant make their choice, the bold have already claimed the spoils. This is true in politics, in war, in business, and in life itself. Power belongs to those who understand that hesitation is death, and action is survival. The man of Virtu does not seek the perfect moment, he creates it. He does not beg for certainty, he imposes certainty through his actions. His decisions are not always flawless, but they are always decisive, and this alone places him above the masses who remain trapped in paralysis. To act is to live. To hesitate is to fade into irrelevance. And in a world where fortune favors the bold, the decisive man will always rise above those who wait. The man of virtue knows the true power does not lie merely in action, but in the illusion of action, not only in what is done, but in what others believe is done. Perception, more than truth, governs the hearts of men. Machiavelli warned that people are simple and easily deceived. They do not peer into reality with sharp eyes. Instead, they accept the mask they are shown. This is why he wrote that a prince need not be truly good, only appear good. He need not be merciful, only appear merciful. The appearance of virtue, without the burden of living by it, grants far greater freedom and control. Most people never grasp this. They think the world is ruled by truth, when in fact, it is ruled by appearances. They believe what they see, they follow what they feel, and they obey the illusions placed before them. Crowds are moved not by reason but by symbols, not by reality but by the stories they are told. And so the man of virtue masters the craft of illusion. He wears the mask that suits the moment, pious in the temple, ruthless in the council, gentle among allies, unyielding before enemies. Behind this shifting mask, he remains free to maneuver, free to plan, free to strike without interference. This mastery of perception is an unfair advantage because it allows the strong to operate in shadows while the weak fight phantoms. Your enemies may waste their strength attacking the image you project, never realizing the truth lies elsewhere. While they battle illusions, you strike with reality. While they trust their emotions, you are the one who placed those emotions within them. In this way, you become untouchable, not by hiding from view, but by ensuring what they see is never the full truth. Machiavelli's lesson is clear. In the game of power, truth is not a necessity. It is a luxury, sometimes even a liability. What is essential is control of perception, for perception shapes reality. Men will die for illusions, fight wars for appearances, and worship symbols that conceal emptiness. The man of virtue knows this and exploits it ruthlessly. He does not ask to be understood, he ensures he is believed. And in that belief, he finds his throne. Few of Machiavelli's lessons have been so feared, debated, and misunderstood as his teaching on cruelty. To most men, cruelty is barbarism, an uncontrolled brutality born of anger, hatred, or savagery. But Machiavelli made a distinction. There is cruelty that destroys, and cruelty that strengthens. There is cruelty that is wild and chaotic, and cruelty that is measured, calculated, and precise. The man of virtue does not shy away from harsh action when it is necessary, but neither does he indulge in needless bloodshed. He strikes like a surgeon with a single incision so that healing may follow. In this way, cruelty, properly used, is not weakness, but wisdom.
Most leaders fall into one of two traps. Some are too soft, terrified of appearing harsh, desperate to be loved, and so they allow disorder to spread unchecked. They let enemies grow bold, conspiracies fester, and disrespect take root, all because they fear the momentary discomfort of discipline. Others fall into the opposite extreme. They drown in blood, punishing excessively, lashing out without restraint, and in doing so, they create endless resentment that eventually consumes them. Both paths end in ruin. But the ruler of Virtù understands the middle path. He is feared enough to be secure, yet not hated enough to be destroyed. This is why calculated cruelty is an unfair advantage. When applied sparingly, it creates long-lasting obedience with minimal effort.
A single act of decisive severity, delivered swiftly and publicly, can command respect for years to come, while endless small punishments breed instability. Cruelty, when necessary, should be concentrated, like thunder that cracks once and shakes the earth, leaving no doubt about the strength behind it. Mercy, then, can follow, not because the ruler is weak, but because order has already been secured. The lesson is brutal but undeniable. People forgive almost anything, except weakness. A ruler who is indecisive in punishment will be despised, for his leniency invites chaos. But a ruler who strikes hard once, with purpose, will be remembered not for the cruelty itself, but for the peace and order that followed it. Machiavelli did not glorify violence, he glorified control. And cruelty, when mastered, is not chaos, it is control sharpened into its most fearsome edge. 6. The courage to be feared. Machiavelli's most famous and most uncomfortable truth was this: it is safer to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Why? Because love is fickle. Love depends on the moods of others, on gratitude, on memory, and on the ever-changing winds of human emotion. A man may love you today and betray you tomorrow if it serves his interests. But fear is constant. Fear does not change with the season. Fear does not waver when temptation appears. Fear anchors loyalty far more deeply than love ever could, because fear is tied not to affection, but to survival. The man of Virtù understands this, and he does not waste his life begging for universal approval. He does not bend and break in the desperate pursuit of being liked. He knows that to seek only love is to invite betrayal. For men love at their leisure, but they obey when compelled. To rule, to lead, to command respect, one must have the courage to be feared, to endure the resentment, the whispers, the envy, knowing that these emotions are weaker than the raw power of fear. Fear, unlike love, cannot be withdrawn on a whim. It does not require constant maintenance. It is not fragile. It is enduring. Yet Machiavelli warned that fear must be carefully managed. To be feared is strength, to be hated is destruction. The man of Virtù draws this line with precision. He ensures his subjects, his soldiers, his rivals know that disobedience carries consequences, swift and inescapable. But he also ensures that his rule does not descend into mindless cruelty that breeds hatred. People may resent him, they may envy him, but they will never risk opposing him, because the cost is too great. And in that calculation, fear becomes the shield that guards his power. This gives him an unfair advantage over other men, because most leaders, most individuals, are enslaved by the need for affection. They crumble when criticized, they panic when disliked, and in doing so, they reveal their weakness. But the man who is willing to be feared cannot be manipulated by opinion. He is beyond the reach of gossip, beyond the chains of popularity, beyond the weakness of needing approval. His presence alone demands obedience, and while others waste their lives trying to please, he secures his place above them, not because he is loved, but because he is untouchable.
7. Mastering fortune through preparation. Machiavelli saw fortune as a raging force, wild, unpredictable, and merciless. To most men, fortune is everything. They rise when it favors them, and they collapse when it turns against them. They call others lucky and themselves unlucky, blind to the truth that luck favors those who are ready for it. The weak man prays for good fortune, but the man of Virtù prepares for its cruelty. He knows the storm is inevitable. He knows the flood will come. And so, while others sleep, he builds his defenses. He trains his body, sharpens his mind, stores his resources, and strengthens his alliances. When disaster finally strikes, he is not surprised. He is already waiting for it.
Preparation is the secret weapon of those who appear invincible. The world mistakes them for lucky, when in truth they have simply foreseen what others refuse to acknowledge. Fortune strikes the unprepared man like lightning, destroying everything he has built. But for the prepared, even misfortune becomes opportunity. When others drown in chaos, he sails through it, elevated by the very waters that ruin his rivals. He thrives not because the world is kind to him, but because he has armored himself against its cruelty. This is why Machiavelli insisted that a ruler must anticipate threats before they appear. He must see danger in peace, weakness in comfort, and decline in prosperity. To wait until the enemy is at the gates is already too late. To wait until famine arrives before storing grain is already to invite death. Preparation is not glamorous, and it wins no applause in the moment, but it is the foundation of lasting power. The unprepared live in reaction. The prepared live in command. Preparation gives the man of virtue his unfair advantage because it transforms chance into choice. Where others are surprised, he is ready. Where others are broken, he adapts. Where others call themselves victims of fate, he becomes the master of it. To prepare is to declare independence from fortune itself, to weaken her power over your life, and to make yourself the author of your own survival. In this, Machiavelli revealed the highest form of strength, not to hope for good luck, but to render luck irrelevant. The lesson of Machiavelli is not gentle, nor is it meant to comfort. It is meant to awaken. The trait that gives you an unfair advantage is not charm, not luck, not even intelligence. It is virtue. It is the force of will that resists fortune's flood. It is the ability to adapt when others remain rigid. It is the courage to act decisively when others hesitate. It is the mastery of perception, the discipline of calculated severity, the strength to be feared, and the foresight to prepare long before the storm arrives. These are not traits of ordinary men. These are the qualities that have built empires, secured thrones, and carved the names of rulers into the stone of history. Most people will never embrace this path. They will cling to weakness, chasing approval, hoping for luck, blaming fate when life strikes them down. They will be swept away by the river of fortune, forgotten as quickly as they lived. But a few, those who cultivate virtue, become untouchable. They rise above chance. They bend circumstances to their will. They are not ruled by the world. They rule themselves, and through themselves, they rule everything around them. And now the question stands before you. Will you live as one of the many, rigid, hesitant, dependent on luck, or will you rise as one of the few who embrace virtue, who carve their own path, who dominate fortune instead of bowing to her? The choice is yours, but time does not wait. Fortune strikes all men, whether ready or not. So prepare yourself, adapt, act boldly, master perception, be willing to be feared, and above all, build the strength that no storm can wash away. Do this, and you will gain the most dangerous of all advantages, the power to rise when others fall, the power to command when others submit, the power to live, not by chance, but by design.